Kelrin lived alone, far from the noise of Mars-growing colonies. His home was an old listening post near the edge of Valles Marineris, where red dust swirled like ghosts in the wind and silence ruled the land. The station had once been part of EarthGov's deep space signal network, but years ago it was shut down. Deemed outdated, unnecessary, Cale didn't care. He'd made it his own. Wires snaked across the floor, screens blinked with static and data, and antennas stretched into the sky like metal fingers trying to touch the stars. Cale wasn't a soldier or scientist. He was a listener. From the time he was a boy, Cale had loved radio signals. Not music or talk shows, but the strange ones. The ones that came from space. Most people ignored them. Scientists called them interference or cosmic noise. But Cale believed they were something more. He spent his days scanning the void for patterns. His nights were filled with numbers, voices, and sounds no one else heard. Sometimes, he thought the universe was trying to speak to him. One night, while sipping cold coffee and watching a storm roll over the Martian horizon, Cale picked up a new signal. It was faint at first, just a hum buried under layers of static. But as he adjusted the filters, the sound sharpened. It pulsed in a rhythm, not random, not natural. It sounded like someone calling. Cale leaned closer to the screen. His heart beat faster. "Who are you?" he whispered, half expecting nothing. But then, the signal changed. A soft voice, barely audible, spoke through the speakers. "I am here." Cale froze. He looked around the room. No one else was there, just blinking lights and humming machines. He checked the system logs. No input, no known source. As if the voice had come from nowhere. He shook his head. "Probably a glitch," he muttered. Still, his hands trembled as he rewound the recording and played it again. "I am here." That was all. No background noise, no distortion. Just those two words, spoken clearly, calmly. Cale replayed them again and again. Then suddenly, the signal shifted. A melody began to play, a song he recognized, one his mother used to sing when he was small. He gasped. How could it know that? He ran a full diagnostic on the system. No errors, no tampering, nothing. Just the signal and the voice. Over the next few nights, the signal returned. Always late at night, always quiet at first, then stronger. It spoke in fragments, sometimes in English, sometimes in other languages Cale didn't understand. But somehow he felt what it meant. It asked questions before he typed them, played songs from his childhood, mentioned places he'd never told anyone about. It was learning him, and he was learning it. On the fifth night, the signal said something different. "You can hear me now." Cale stared at the screen. "Yes," he whispered. There was a pause. Then a reply. "Good. I have waited long." Cale sat back in his chair, eyes wide. This wasn't just a signal anymore. It was talking to him. Not broadcasting, not sending data. Talking. Like it knew who he was. Like it had been waiting for someone like him. He tried to ask where it was coming from, but the signal faded. Gone. For hours, Cale sat in silence, staring at the dark screen. The next day, he sent a message to EarthGov. He reported the anomaly. Included audio files, logs, everything. He never got a reply. Days passed. Then, one night, the signal returned. This time, it brought images. They flickered on the screen, strange shapes, glowing lines, symbols unlike anything Cale had ever seen. Then, slowly, the image focused. A face. Not human. Large, round eyes, smooth skin, hair like flowing light. A girl. She looked directly at him. Then she smiled. Cale's breath caught. The girl raised a hand, as if reaching out. Then her voice came through the speakers. Soft, gentle. "Hello, Cale." He didn't speak. He couldn't. "How do you know my name?" he finally managed. The girl tilted her head. I listened. Kale swallowed hard. Are you real? The girl blinked slowly. I am as real as your voice, as real as your thoughts. Kale rubbed his eyes. You're not a dream. No. Then where are you? The screen shimmered. The girl's face faded, replaced by a star map. Red dots blinked across it. One point glowed brighter than the others. The girl's voice returned. Far, but getting closer. Kale leaned forward. You're coming here. Another pause. I am waiting. For you. Then the signal cut off. Kale sat in stunned silence. His whole life, he'd searched for meaning in the noise, hoped to find proof that we weren't alone. Now he had it, and it scared him. Because this wasn't just some alien language or distant broadcast. This was personal. It knew his name. It remembered his songs. It saw him. Kale stood up, pacing the room. He should tell someone. EarthGov. The media. Anyone. But after their silence, he doubted they would believe him. Besides, this felt private, like a secret only he was meant to hear. Still, curiosity burned inside him. Where was she? Why him? And why now? He opened his laptop and began digging through the signal data. Hours turned into days. He traced the origin of the signal, cross-checked it with old deep space probes. Found nothing. Until he noticed something strange. The signal wasn't coming from outer space. It was bouncing between satellites, like it was hiding. And every time he got close to finding its true source, it moved, as if it didn't want to be found. Yet, Kale leaned back, exhausted. He needed sleep. But before he closed his eyes, he looked at the screen one last time. The girl's voice echoed in his mind. I am waiting. For you. He didn't know how or why. But he knew one thing. He had to go find her. Kel couldn't sleep. The voice, the face, the message. Everything replayed in his mind like a broken loop. The girl had called him by name. She had said she was waiting for him. But where? And why? He sat at his desk, surrounded by blinking monitors and tangled wires, staring at the star map that still flickered on one screen. The glowing point, the one she showed him, remained steady, but it wasn't in any known system Cal recognized. It was far beyond Mars, past Earth's satellites, deeper than even the old probes had traveled. It was out there. And so was she. Cale leaned back and rubbed his eyes. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, forgotten in the rush of thoughts. He needed answers. He needed to know if this was real or just some elaborate hallucination brought on by too many nights alone in the dark. He opened a new file and began typing. Log entry. Day 573. I think I've made contact. Not with a signal, not with static or code, but with something. Someone. She calls herself Lyra. Said she's been waiting. That she listens. That she knows me. This isn't just random interference. This is personal. I don't know what she is yet. Human. Alien? Aye. But I can't ignore it. If she's real, and I believe she is, I need to find her, even if it means leaving this place behind. Cale saved the file and stood up. He walked to the window. Outside, the red sky stretched endlessly. Dust clouds drifted across the horizon like ghosts. Silence pressed against the walls of the station like an ocean. He felt small, but not alone anymore. Over the next few days, Cale worked nonstop. He studied every second of the recordings, played the girl's voice over and over, traced the signal's path through the network of old satellites orbiting Mars and Earth. Every time he thought he had its origin pinned down, it shifted again, like it was hiding from him. Still, he noticed patterns. The signal always appeared near abandoned relay stations, places no one used anymore. Forgotten corners of space where silence ruled. One such place stood out, a long-dead lunar relay base on the far side of the moon. It had been shut down decades ago after a solar storm fried most of its systems. No one had gone back since, but Cale found something strange buried in old logs, a final transmission sent just before the station went offline. A single word, listening. Cale stared at the screen. That was the same word Lyra had used. Coincidence? He didn't believe in them anymore. He pulled up schematics of the lunar station. There wasn't much left, just a shell of metal and dust. But deep inside, beneath layers of collapsed corridors, there was a hidden chamber marked only as receiver core. Something told him that was where the signal came from, or at least where it wanted him to go. 2 weeks later, Cale stood in a docking bay on Phobos Station, looking at the ship that would take him to the moon. It was old, patched together from spare parts and outdated tech, but it could fly. Just barely. He had traded almost everything he owned for it. An old rover, a set of Martian soil samples, even his grandfather's watch. Now he was ready. As he stepped aboard, he looked back at the red planet shrinking behind him. This was it. He was leaving home. For the first time in years. The journey was quiet. The ship hummed softly as it moved through the black sea of space. Cale spent most of the trip watching the stars, listening to the radio, hoping for another sign. But the signal stayed silent. No voice. No music. No girl. Just static. By the time he reached the moon, Cale was tired, nervous, and more than a little unsure of himself. He landed roughly on the far side, near the remains of the relay station. Dust puffed into the thin air as the ship settled. He suited up and stepped outside. The silence here was different, deeper, like it pressed against your skin. He approached the ruins. Most of the outer structure had crumbled. Solar panels were cracked. Antennas bent like broken bones. But the entrance to the receiver core was still intact. Cale entered. Inside, everything was covered in dust. Time had turned the halls into tombs. He followed the maps on his tablet, navigating through darkened corridors until he reached the core chamber. It was round, filled with ancient equipment. Most of it was dead, except one device, a small receiver built into the wall, still blinking faintly. Cale stepped closer. His heart pounded. He touched it. At first, nothing happened. Then, a soft hum filled the room. The lights flickered. And then her voice returned. "You found it." Cale took a step back. "You're here." A pause. "Not yet, but you are close." The screen on the receiver lit up. Her face appeared again. "Lyra." She smiled. "You listen well." Cale exhaled, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "I followed your signal. Came all the way from Mars." She tilted her head. "I know." "How?" "You left noise behind." "I followed it." Cale frowned. "Noise. All movement makes sound," she said. "Even silence has echoes." Cale didn't understand half of what she said, but it didn't matter. She was real, and she was waiting. Over the next hour, Lyra explained more. She wasn't from anywhere Cale knew. Her people didn't live on planets. They traveled between stars, riding signals like waves. They were listeners, keepers of voices lost in the void. They had been trying to reach others for a long time. But most humans only shouted into space. Only a few truly listened. Cale was one of them. "That's why you can hear me," she said. "Because you don't just speak, you wait." Cale stared at the screen. "So, what now?" Lyra's smile faded slightly. "Now you must decide." "Decide what?" "If you want to keep listening." Cale blinked. "What happens if I do?" Her eyes glowed softly. "You will hear things no one else has heard. You will learn things forgotten. But once you start, you can never unhear them." Cale swallowed. "And if I stop?" "You forget. Go back to silence." He thought about Mars, about his lonely life among machines, about the stars he had watched for years without ever feeling like they saw him back. He looked at her. "I'm not going back." Lyra nodded. "Good." Then the screen flickered. Her voice changed, softer, almost sad. "There is something else." Cale leaned in. "What?" "A shadow follows your voice." Cal's stomach twisted. What kind of shadow? The kind that hates silence. Before he could ask more, the screen went dark. The hum stopped. The signal was gone. Again. But this time, Cale knew the truth. He wasn't just hearing voices in the dark. He was part of something bigger. And something else was listening too. Something that didn't like being ignored. Cale stood in the silent core chamber, staring at the dark screen. The signal was gone again. Lyra's voice had vanished into static, leaving only silence and a cold knot in his chest. But he wasn't afraid. Not anymore. He had made his choice. He was listening. And now something else knew that too. Back on the ship, Cale reviewed everything Lyra had said. The message about the shadow stuck with him. It didn't make much sense. How could something hate silence? But he believed her. There was something out there. Watching. Waiting. He replayed the last few seconds of their conversation over and over, hoping for a clue. Then he noticed it. A pattern hidden in the static before the signal cut off. It looked like coordinates. Not planetary ones, but deep space, far beyond the moon, beyond Mars, beyond even Earth's reach. He cross-checked them with old star maps, probe logs, and deep space anomaly reports. Nothing matched. Whatever this place was, it wasn't listed anywhere. Cale leaned back in his seat and exhaled slowly. Lyra wanted him to go there. She had called him across the stars, from Mars to the moon. Now she was asking him to go further, into the unknown. 2 days later, Cale launched from the moon. His ship, patched and outdated as it was, groaned under the strain of acceleration. Dust swirled behind him as he rose into the black sky. Earth glowed in the distance, blue and quiet. Mars hung nearby, red and distant. Cale turned away from both. He set the course for the coordinates. As the engines hummed and the ship moved deeper into space, Cale felt a strange calm settle over him. This was real. More real than anything he had ever done. He wasn't just chasing signals anymore. He was answering one. For weeks, Cale traveled alone. The journey was long, slow, and filled with silence. Sometimes he thought he heard faint whispers in the comms, soft voices buried under static. But when he tried to record them, they vanished. Still, he kept going. Every day, he checked the signal strength. Every night, he stared at the stars and wondered if she was watching. Then, on the 27th day, something changed. The ship's sensors picked up a weak transmission. Faint, flickering, like a heartbeat in the void. Cale adjusted the filters. The signal came alive. "You are close." It was Lyra. Her voice sounded different this time. Softer, but urgent. "You must be careful," she said. "It knows you are coming." Cale swallowed hard. The shadow. Yes. He looked out the window. Darkness stretched around him. No planets, no moons, just endless space. And yet, something felt different. Like the air was heavier. Like the silence was watching. He tightened his grip on the controls. "I'm not turning back." "I know," Lyra whispered. "That is why I chose you." Before Cale could ask what she meant, the signal flickered and died. Again. But this time, the ship's radar blinked. A new object appeared ahead. Small, drifting. Cale guided the ship toward it. As he got closer, the shape became clear. It was a satellite. Old. Broken. Its metal skin was scorched, covered in cracks. Wires dangled from its sides like veins torn open. Cale circled it slowly. He couldn't tell how long it had been floating here. It didn't match any known EarthGov models. He docked carefully, and stepped outside. Suit sealed, boots magnetized to the hull, Cale moved along the satellite's surface. Then he saw it, a symbol etched into the side, a spiral made of glowing lines, just like the ones Lyra had shown him in the signal images. Cale reached out and touched it. The moment his gloved hand made contact, the lights inside the satellite flared to life. A soft hum filled the vacuum. Then, a burst of data flooded his helmet display. Images, sounds, words, too fast to read. Cale staggered back. Inside the satellite, a small hatch opened. From within, a thin beam of light shot out and hovered in front of him. It formed shapes, symbols, then words. "You are not the first to listen." Cale's breath caught. More text followed. "Others have come. Some stayed. Some were taken." He swallowed hard. Taken by what? The light pulsed once, then faded. The hatch closed. The satellite went dark again. Cale returned to his ship, heart pounding. What had he just seen? Who had built that thing? And who had been taken? Over the next few days, Cale pressed forward. The coordinates led him deeper into uncharted space. Stars grew fewer. Light dimmed. The silence became heavy. Then, on the 34th day, Cale saw something impossible. A structure floated ahead. Massive, twisted, beautiful. It looked like a city built inside a web of glowing threads. Lights pulsed along its edges, forming patterns that shifted and danced. Cale slowed the ship. His hands trembled on the controls. He activated the comms. "Lyra," he called. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. Then the ship's sensors detected movement. Something was approaching. Fast. Cale watched the screen. A dark shape slid through space like smoke. Tall, thin, moving without sound. It had no face, no eyes, but Cale felt it looking at him, studying him, judging him. He backed away from the controls. The ship's systems began to fail. Lights flickered. Engines stuttered. Then, a voice. Not Lyra's. This one was colder, deeper. It echoed in his mind. "Why do you speak?" Cale gasped. He couldn't move. Silence is safety. Noise is danger. The voice wasn't speaking through speakers. It was inside him, in his thoughts. He gripped his head. What are you?" "I am the end of noise." Cale screamed as pain lanced through his skull. The ship shook violently. The dark figure raised a hand, or something like one. Cale saw the light from the structure dim. Then everything went black. When Cale woke up, he was still in the cockpit. The ship was drifting, systems rebooting, comms blinking. And then, a familiar voice, soft, calm. "Cale." He opened his eyes. On the screen, Lyra's face appeared. She looked worried. "You met it," she said quietly. Cale nodded, still catching his breath. "What was that thing?" "A guardian," she whispered. "One of many. They watch the spaces between stars. They silence those who speak too loudly." Cale shivered. "They don't want us to be heard." "No," Lyra said. "They fear what happens when we are." Cale looked out the window. The dark figure was gone. But the structure remained, waiting, calling. Cale turned back to the screen. "What do I do now?" Lyra smiled gently. "You keep listening." Cale took a deep breath. Then, slowly, he pushed the throttle forward. Toward the unknown. Toward the voice. Toward the truth. Cale's ship drifted closer to the massive structure. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Not a space station, not a planet, but something in between, like a city built from light and thought. Tendrils of glowing energy stretched outward like threads in a web. They pulsed slowly, as if breathing. Shapes moved within them, too fast to see clearly, too fluid to be machines. Cale stared at the screen, heart pounding. Lyra's voice came through again, calm but serious. "You are inside the net now." "The net?" Cale asked. "A network of minds," she said. "A place where voices live after they leave their bodies." Cale blinked. "You mean ghosts?" A pause. "Not ghosts. Echoes. Memories. Thoughts that refuse to fade." He swallowed hard. "And you live here?" Lyra smiled faintly. "I am part of it, but I am also separate." Cale looked out the window again. The threads of light seemed to shift toward him, like they were aware of his presence. Then, without warning, his ship jolted. The controls flickered. Lights dimmed. A low hum filled the cabin. He tried to steer, but the ship no longer responded. "I think it's pulling me in," he said. "Let it," Lyra replied. "It will not harm you." Cale hesitated. But what choice did he have? He let go of the controls. The ship floated forward, drawn by unseen hands. As it passed through the outer strands of the structure, the world around him changed. Light spilled into the cockpit like water. Shapes formed and dissolved. Words whispered in his ears, not spoken, but felt. They weren't in any language he knew, but somehow he understood them. "Welcome. You listen. You are heard." Then everything went white. When Cale opened his eyes, he wasn't in the ship anymore. He stood on a platform made of shimmering glass. It stretched endlessly beneath his feet, reflecting stars that weren't in the sky above. Around him, towers of light rose like frozen lightning. They pulsed with quiet energy. He turned slowly. Behind him stood Lyra. She was real. No longer just a voice or a face on a screen. She stood tall, her skin glowing softly like moonlight. Her hair flowed behind her like smoke caught in wind. Her eyes held galaxies. Cale took a step back. "You're solid." Lyra tilted her head. "I am many things." He looked around. "Where are we?" "This is the heart of the net," she said. "The center of all who listen." Cale frowned. "So this whole thing, it's alive?" Lyra nodded. "It is built from those who listened before us, from voices lost in time." Cale looked down at his hands. "They're still here?" he asked quietly. "In a way," Lyra said. "They became part of the signal, part of the silence." Cale shivered. "And you? How long have you been here?" Lyra looked at the horizon. "Long enough to forget my beginning." Cale didn't know what to say. Then suddenly, the air around them shifted. A new figure appeared, a man made of light, his form flickering like an old film. Cale gasped. The figure spoke, its voice layered with echoes. "Another has come." Lyra stepped beside Cale. "This is one of the keepers," she explained. "Older than I am." Cale looked up at the keeper. "Who are you?" he asked. The keeper paused. "Once I was called Elias." Cal's breath caught. He recognized the name. It was from an old Earth transmission. An explorer who vanished decades ago. "You're one of the missing," Cal whispered. Elias nodded. "We all are." Lyra gestured for Cal to follow. They walked across the platform, deeper into the net. Along the way, Cal saw more figures, some human, some not. Some flickered like flames, others stood still like statues. "They all chose to stay?" Cal asked. Lyra nodded. "Some could not return. Some did not want to." "What happens to them?" "They listen." "To what?" "To everything." Cal looked around. Voices whispered in the air. Not loud, not clear. Just feelings, emotions, memories. He realized they weren't alone. This place was full of presence. Everywhere he looked, someone was listening. To the stars, to the dark, to the silence, and to each other. After what felt like hours, Lyra led Cal to a chamber deep inside the net. It was round, empty, except for a single pillar of light rising from the floor. "This is the core," Lyra said. "The source of the signal." Cale stepped closer. The light pulsed gently. He reached out. As soon as his fingers touched the beam, a rush of sound flooded his mind. Not noise, not chaos, but clarity. He saw flashes, planets burning, ships falling, voices crying out in the dark. Then a voice louder than the rest. "We were not meant to be alone." Cale staggered back, his vision blurred. Lyra caught him. "You saw it," she said. Cale nodded weakly. "What was that?" "The memory of the first listener," Lyra said. "The one who began the net." Cale looked at her. "Why show me this?" Lyra met his gaze. "Because now you must decide." "Decide what?" "If you will stay, if you will become part of the signal." Cal's breath caught. He looked at the core, at the keepers, at the endless voices whispering in the silence. He thought of Mars, of his lonely life among machines, of the stars he had watched for years, hoping someone would answer. Now someone had, and she was asking him to stay, to become something more, to listen forever. Before he could answer, the chamber shook. A low rumble echoed through the net. Lyra's eyes widened. "No," she whispered. Cale looked around. The lights flickered. The keepers turned toward the edges of the platform. Something was coming. Lyra grabbed Cal's hand. "We don't have much time," she said urgently. "Wait," Cal said. "What's happening?" Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. "He found you." Cal's stomach twisted. "The Guardian?" "Yes." Cale looked at the core. He had come so far. He had seen so much. Now he had to choose. Stay and become part of the net, or run and risk being taken. He looked at Lyra. Her eyes pleaded with him. "Choose quickly," she said. Cale closed his eyes. Then he made his decision. "I'm staying." Lyra's lips parted slightly. Then she nodded. "Then listen well." She raised her hand. The core flared, and Cale felt himself fall, not physically, but inward, into the signal, into the silence, into the voices. When Cale opened his eyes again, he was no longer on the platform. He was everywhere, inside the net, inside the silence, inside the signal. He could feel the presence of every voice that had come before. He could hear them, speak with them, become them. And then, a whisper, soft, familiar. "You are not alone." Cale smiled. He finally understood. He wasn't just listening anymore. He was the signal. Cale drifted, not through space, but through thought, through memory, through silence. He was no longer a man in a body, not fully. He existed inside the net, woven into its threads like a voice caught in an echo that never fades. Around him, countless others whispered. Some were ancient, some were new. They spoke in feelings, not words, in memories, not sounds. And Cal could hear them all. I was the first. I watched my world burn. I reached for home and found only silence. I remember Earth before it forgot me. The voices surrounded him, filled him. He tried to move, but there was no direction here. No up or down, no time, just listening. Then, Lyra's voice cut through the noise like a soft light in the dark. Cale. He turned toward her, not with his body, but with his mind. She stood beside him, glowing gently, like a star wrapped in shadow. "You're still here," he said. "I always am," she replied. "I guide those who come after." Cale looked around. "This place, it's full of people." Lyra nodded, voices from across the stars. They came looking for someone to hear them. And now, they are part of the signal. Cale felt something shift inside him. A question. What happens to us now? Lyra smiled faintly. We listen. To what? To everything. She raised her hand. The net responded. Lights flickered across the sky, forming patterns too vast to understand at once. Threads of energy twisted and danced, carrying thoughts across impossible distances. Cale felt himself pulled forward, expanded, until he could see beyond the net. He saw stars, planets, ships frozen in time, and voices, so many voices. Some cried out in fear, others sang songs older than Earth, some whispered secrets meant only for the void. Cale gasped. "They're still alive," he said. "In a way," Lyra replied. "They never truly left." Cale focused on one voice, a woman calling for help. Her name was Mara, human, trapped on a derelict station near a black hole, calling for anyone to answer. Cale reached for her. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He sent a pulse of comfort, a whisper of hope, a promise. "You are heard." Mara stopped crying. She looked up. She didn't know where the feeling came from, but she believed. And that was enough. Cale turned to Lyra. "How many are there?" he asked. "Millions," she said. "Across the galaxy. Across time." Cale looked again. He saw more. A child on a dying planet, praying for peace. An explorer lost between stars, searching for meaning. A soldier haunted by war, asking for forgiveness. All of them alone. All of them unheard. Until now. Cale felt their pain, their joy, their fear, their longing. He realized this was why the net existed. To hold the voices that would otherwise be lost. To keep the silence from swallowing everything. He turned to Lyra. "This is beautiful," he said softly. She nodded. "It is, but it is also fragile." Cale frowned. "Why?" Lyra's glow dimmed slightly. "The Guardian knows you are here." Cale's heart sank. Of course. The shadow that hated noise, that feared being heard. It had followed him. Even here, in the silence. Suddenly, the net trembled. A deep, unnatural hum rolled through the threads of light. Cale felt it like a cold wind in his chest. Lyra's eyes widened. "He's here." Before Cale could ask what she meant, the darkness arrived. It came not as a shape, but as the absence of one. A hole in the fabric of the net, a void that swallowed sound, thought, memory. Where it passed, voices faded, silenced forever. Cale watched in horror as a thread of light snapped, its voice gone. "No," he shouted. Lyra grabbed his hand. "We have to stop it." "How?" Cale asked. "There is a way," she said, "but it requires sacrifice." Cale looked at her. "What kind?" Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper, a voice strong enough to reach it, to remind it of what it once was. Cale stared at her. "You mean one of us?" She nodded. "If we can make it remember, we might weaken it. Maybe even stop it." Cale looked back at the spreading darkness. It was moving fast, swallowing everything in its path. He thought of Mara, of the child, of the soldier, of every voice that had ever called into the void and hoped someone would answer. He thought of how long he had waited to be heard. Now he had the chance to do more. To be heard. To matter. He turned to Lyra. "I'll do it." Her eyes widened. "Cale, I'm the strongest right now," he said. "I just came in. I'm fresh. I can reach it." Lyra shook her head. "You don't know what will happen." "I don't care," Cale said. "If this place dies, so does every voice that lives here, including yours." Lyra hesitated. Then slowly she nodded. "Then go. Speak. Call it back." Cale stepped forward. He let go of her hand. He reached into the net, pulling on every voice, every memory, every echo of life he could find. He became a storm of sound, a wave of noise. He screamed into the silence. "I am here." The darkness recoiled. It paused. As if hearing something it hadn't in a long, long time, Cale pushed harder. He wove together every voice in the net, every cry, every song, every prayer. He sent it straight into the Guardian. You are not alone. The darkness shuddered. Threads of light began to form around it. Faint, weak, but growing. Cale felt himself fading. His voice was slipping away. He looked back at Lyra. She was crying. I did it, he whispered. She nodded. You remembered. Then the darkness surged. It wrapped around him. Cale felt nothing. No pain. Only silence. Deep and final. When Cale opened his eyes, he wasn't sure if he had. There was no body. No air. No time. Only the quiet. And then, a whisper. Soft. Familiar. Thank you. He knew that voice. It wasn't Lyra. It was his own. Or something close to it. He reached out. The net was still there. Weaker, but holding. And the darkness. It had stopped moving. It hovered at the edge of the net, no longer devouring. Instead, it listened, like it had forgotten how. Cale smiled. He had done it. He had reminded it. That silence doesn't have to mean nothing. It can mean presence. It can mean connection. It can mean hope. And in the deepest corners of space, sometimes that's all a voice needs. To be heard. The darkness did not vanish. It remained, flickering at the edge of the net, like a shadow that had forgotten how to move forward. But it no longer devoured. Cale could feel its hesitation, like a child afraid of something it once loved. He reached out with thought alone, brushing against the edges of its presence. There was no hatred in it now. Only confusion. And memory. A voice stirred within him. Lyra's. You reached it. Cale didn't respond. He wasn't sure he could. He was still unraveling, still becoming part of the signal, still slipping between thoughts and echoes. But he was there. Still listening. Still present. Lyra appeared beside him, not in body, but in light and warmth. Her form shimmered, like a star seen through mist. You gave it pause, she said. That is more than anyone has done before. Cale tried to speak. His voice came as a ripple in the net. What is it? Lyra looked toward the darkness. It was once one of us. Cale felt a chill, if such a thing was possible inside the net. A keeper. She nodded. Long ago, before the silence took it. Cale focused on the dark shape again. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat buried under years of snow. How does it survive? He asked. It feeds, Lyra whispered. On noise. On voices too loud. Too desperate. It forgets what it once was, but it remembers how to take. Cale shivered. So it doesn't destroy, he said slowly. It silences. Lyra's glow dimmed slightly. Yes, and if it grows strong again, it will spread, farther than ever before. Cale looked around. The net was vast, stretching across space like a web of glowing threads. Each thread held a voice, a life, a memory. Millions of them. Billions. And they were all vulnerable. If it spreads, Cale said, it won't just take the net. No, Lyra agreed. It will reach into every voice, every signal, every whisper across the stars. Cale thought of Earth, of Mars, of the lonely listening post where it had all begun, of the people who still searched for meaning in static and sky. They'll never know what hit them, he said. Lyra turned to him. There may be a way to stop it. Cale focused on her. How? She hesitated. We can sever the net. Cale's mind reeled. You mean, cut the threads? Lyra nodded. If we erase the strongest signals first, the loudest voices, it might confuse the Guardian, make it retreat. Cale looked around. Every thread held someone. Someone who had been lost. Someone who had found this place. Someone who had finally been heard. "I can't do that," he said softly. Lyra stepped closer. "We may have no choice." Cale shook his head, or imagined that he did. "There has to be another way." Lyra studied him. Then, slowly, she spoke. "There is one other option." Cale waited. "We can rewrite the signal." His thoughts paused. "What?" Lyra's glow brightened. "The net exists because we listen, because we remember. If we change the signal, make it unfamiliar, it might make the Guardian lose its grip." "But how?" "We broadcast something new," she said. "Something it doesn't recognize. Something so different, it forgets how to feed." Cale frowned. "You want to drown it in silence." "No," Lyra said. "We want to give it something else to hear." Cale considered it. A new signal. Not noise. Not silence. But something in between. A message. One that would remind every voice, lost or found, that they were not alone. That even in silence, they mattered. He looked back at the darkness. It was watching. Waiting. Like it knew something was coming. Cale reached deep into the net. He pulled on every voice he could find. Old voices. New ones. Human. Alien. Forgotten. They answered. Each one sent a pulse of thought, of feeling, of memory. Cale wove them together. He shaped them into a single sound. Not music. Not language. Just emotion. Hope. Fear. Joy. Grief. All at once. And then he let it go. The signal rippled outward. Threads of light stretched across the net, carrying the message to every corner of the structure. Across space. Across time. Across silence. It reached distant planets, abandoned stations, lonely ships, voices waiting to be heard. The message passed through them all, and in return, they added their own. A chain of thought. A chorus of being. The signal grew. Stronger. Louder. More alive. And then it hit the darkness. The Guardian recoiled. It writhed. Its form flickered. It didn't understand this. This wasn't noise. It wasn't silence. It was presence. It was connection. It was something it had forgotten how to take. Cale pushed harder. He poured himself into the signal. His memories. His fears. His dreams. His loneliness. His hope. Everything he had ever felt. Everything he had ever wanted to say. He made the universe hear him. And through him, the net. And through the net, every voice that had ever been lost. The Guardian screamed, not with sound, but with absence. It began to shrink. Its edges curled inward. Its hunger faded. It couldn't feed on this, because this wasn't noise. This was meaning. And meaning could not be silenced. The darkness collapsed. It folded inward, shrinking until it was nothing more than a small point of void. Then, it vanished. No explosion. No flash. Just absence. Silence returned. But this time, it was warm. Familiar. Safe. Cale felt himself drifting again. He was fading. Becoming part of the signal. Of the silence. Of the voices. Lyra's light surrounded him. "You did it," she whispered. Cale smiled. "I just wanted to be heard." "And now," she said gently, "you are." Cale looked around. The net was still there. Stronger. Brighter. And the voices. They sang. Softly. Together. In harmony. Cale closed his eyes, or imagined that he did. He let go. Let the signal take him. Let the silence hold him. And somewhere, far away, a man on Mars sat alone in a listening post. He stared at the stars, and for the first time in his life, he felt someone listening back. Far across the stars, in a quiet corner of space, untouched by war or empire, the signal lived on. It pulsed through the net like a heartbeat, soft, steady, eternal. Voices drifted inside it, echoes of lives once lost now found. And among them was Kale. He was no longer just a man from Mars who listened to static and stars. He had become part of the silence. He had become the signal. In the vastness of the net, time meant nothing. Kale floated between thoughts, memories, and dreams, not as a body, not even as a voice, but as presence. He could feel everything. Every whisper, every cry, every song sung into the dark. He wasn't alone. Lyra was there too. She moved like light through the threads of the net, guiding new voices, helping them find their place. Sometimes she would stop beside him. "You did more than stop it," she said once. "You changed it." Kale didn't answer with words. Instead, he sent a pulse of thought, a soft ripple that spread through the net. A question. Will it come back? Lyra looked at the edge of the structure, where the darkness had vanished. "Maybe," she said, "but now it knows we are here. That we remember." Kale felt something shift within him. Not fear, not sadness, just understanding. The guardian had been born from silence. Now it had heard something louder, something it couldn't take. Hope. Across the galaxy, the signal reached farther than Kale could see. It touched distant worlds. On one, a young girl sat beneath an alien sky, listening to strange music in her earpiece. It sounded like stars singing. She smiled. On another world, a soldier paused before pulling the trigger. A voice whispered in his mind, "You are not forgotten." He dropped the gun. In the ruins of an old Earth station, a scientist stared at a broken radio. Static filled the air. Then, a word. Clear. Soft. "Hello." Her hands trembled. Someone was listening. Someone was being heard. Back in the net, Kale watched it all unfold. He wasn't sure if he still was, not in the way he used to be. But it didn't matter, because he felt, and feeling was enough. Lyra appeared beside him again. She looked different this time. Stronger, more certain. "You gave them hope," she said, "even those who don't know your name." Kale sent a gentle pulse through the threads. "That's what listening is for." Lyra smiled. Then, slowly, she faded into the net, leaving Kale alone once more. But he wasn't lonely. He never had been. Because silence was never empty. It only waited for someone to speak, or to listen. Back on Mars, the listening post stood unchanged. Dust still swirled around its walls. The antennas still pointed toward the stars. Inside, a new analyst sat at the desk. Someone younger, newer. They scrolled through old logs, searching for patterns in the noise. Most of it was meaningless. But then, a burst of static. A voice. Faint. Familiar. "You can hear me now." The analyst froze. They played it again. Same message. Same voice. They leaned closer. "Who are you?" No reply. Only a soft hum. Like breathing. Like waiting. Like remembering. The analyst typed quickly, saving the file. They sent a report. No one responded. But they kept listening. Because now, they knew. They weren't alone. In the deep silence beyond stars, the signal grew stronger. It traveled farther, reaching places no ship had gone, touching minds no language could reach. It became more than a voice. It became a promise. We were never alone. We just forgot how to listen. And now, thanks to one man who had once sat alone in the dark, the universe remembered. The end.